Good evening and welcome to the Gersnet Weekly Podcast. First one of the new season. I'm sure you've all been you've probably been counting the days over the summer for this day to come. This is episode 341. I am your host tonight, John McCallum. And of course, this is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is completely free. We've got forums, we've got articles, we've got social media, and there is, of course, a wonderful history archive on the Gersnet website. I would encourage you to go and have a look. And if this is the first time listening to the pod, wow, what a show you're in for tonight. We've got weeks and weeks of frustration building up inside us to get out. But if you enjoy the show, I'd encourage you to subscribe, share with people on social media, etc. So, as I said, this is the first show of 24-25 season. It's still only July, but a bit like the weather, it's not been the summer we've all been hoping for, at least not so far. However, tonight, I am joined by two rays of sunshine in Colin Armstrong and Ben Harshaw. Now, together we'll have a look at the players who've departed the club. We'll have a look at the new recruits. We'll run our eye over them and how that leaves the squad at this time. We'll maybe discuss if there's anything can be learned from pre-season friendlies. Pardon me, and we'll have a wee look at the state of the club as it stands currently. Now, before we do all that, we have had one great re-signing over the summer, and thankfully that's Forrest Precision Engineering, without whom this podcast would be very difficult for us to put together. Now, Forrest Precision Engineering are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they're a big commercial supporter of Rangers, and they've also been helping the podcast as well. And we're delighted they're back for another season. Now, if precision engineering is not what you need in your life, you may well be more interested in the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a hospitality area within the main stand. It is available to book. It's a unique and intimate space, and if you'd like to know more about it, please email the club directly. At hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Okay. The Euros finished just a week ago. The Tour de France and the Open Golf just finished today. And yet here we are. It's just like Christmas. Every year it starts a little bit earlier, and the Gersnet podcast is here. So I'm joined tonight by one old friend and one new friend. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us what you've been doing over this summer. So Ben, you and I have not had this pleasure before. I don't know what you've done to Frankie to annoy him, but he's put you on with Colin and I tonight, that's usually a sign that somebody needs to be brought back into line. Ben, what have you been doing this summer? Have you been enjoying it so far?
Yes, so good to be on with you for the first time. But the summer has flown in really. But in terms of the football coming back already, the weather has been rubbish and haven't been up to an awful lot, if I'm honest. Enjoyed the golf today. It was about the height of it.
Rory McIlroy went home on Friday, I believe.
He did indeed, yes, as usual. Yeah.
You kept watching anyway.
Yeah.
That's just stuff. And what about you, Colin? I mean, you're a man who loves other sports. Tour de France would probably have had you gripped this year. Test match finished today against the West Indies. Which one of those two caught your eye?
Oh, none of them. I mean, I'm not a big fan of cycling at all. Certainly not as a spectator sport. I didn't even watch much of the Euros, to be honest with you, John, because my hatred for football increases every day. You know what I mean? Just the modern game and how it's depicted and all that kind of stuff. So I think I caught about 4 or 5 games of the Euros. That was it. I had a wee week in Italy to get away from it all. And then I came down on to the pool on the first day, just Tims everywhere. So yeah, that was great fun.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that in Italy, mate, would you?
No, I had a wee moment though. It was quite funny. I never I was trying to when I go on holiday, I do try and leave everyone behind, including the football and all that kind of stuff, right?
The wife and kids.
And obviously they had to come along. But I had a sort of training top with me, a sort of t-shirt, Rangers training top. I was like, I'm not going to wear it. I'll just no bother. But on the final day of my holiday, because there was that many hoops, I was like, no, I'm making a statement, right? I'm just sick of seeing all these Celtic fans at the pool. So I came down with my sort of Castore training top on with the Rangers crest on it. And when I was up getting my lunch, I was getting some food. This woman leaned into me and she went, "Ay, Christ, am I glad to see you?" So she must have been sitting the full time like, some Rangers fans here, you know what I mean? So yeah, interesting.
Well, talking about interesting, I thought we'd start by having a look at the squad, Colin, and where we are just now. So as things currently stand, and I think it's only fair we say this, it's the 21st of July, so there's still a wee bit to go before the squad is finalised. But as things stand just now, we've seen first team starters leave. John Lundstrom, Borna Barisic, Fabio Silva and Abdullah Seaman. Obviously the last two were on loan, but when fit they pretty much were getting into the starting 11. Along with Ryan Jack and Kamar Roof, who contributed in their day when fit, but obviously not so much last season or two. And three backup goalkeepers, which it was one of these ones I had to check. Really? 3 goalkeepers left the club. There you go. So 3 backup goalkeepers left. And that's who's left. And currently they've been replaced by Connor Barron, who I think is coming in to challenge for a first team place. I think that's fair to say. Liam Kelly, who I don't think is challenging for a first team place as long as Jack Butland remains at the club. And Jeffy. Now, I might be pronouncing his name all wrong, because I noticed yesterday he was being pronounced as Yefty. So I don't know.
Was it Tom Miller that was pronounced?
It was. So his name's pronounced completely differently again. But Jeffy.
Yeah. We're probably both wrong.
So and again, I guess I think he is coming in certainly to challenge Redvan for left back. Along with the youngsters, Clinton, and I hope I'm going to say this correctly, Nsiala. I'm hoping I've pronounced that correctly. I haven't actually heard his name mentioned. And Hamza Igamani, or Igamane, again, apologies if I haven't got that thing. And from what I gather, both of them were by potential. They're players probably coming into the first team squad, but not expected to perhaps making much of a challenge in the initial few months anyway. On top of that, we'll get Hadji and Lammers returning from loan spells. Look, I guess my first question here is do you think the squad is stronger now than it was at the end of last season?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I can just give you a one-word answer to that. I won't, but I think, I mean, we do have to apply context, and the context is, we have, even although I didn't watch a lot of it, we have had a major competition, and the transfer market has been relatively slow for everyone. I mean, there hasn't been a huge amount of signings, because I think that tends to happen when you have a summer tournament. But, the season kicks off 2 weeks today, is it?
2 weeks yesterday. 2 weeks yesterday.
And then, you've got the Champions League qualifiers coming up. So, yeah.
The same week.
I mean, it's slightly worrying that we're getting so close to the kick-off, and we look a bit bare. I mean, I watched the game yesterday. I always find friendlies it's hard to get anything from them, you know what I mean? Because essentially they're more about getting minutes in the legs and all that kind of stuff. But I found it frustrating because it's just the same issues, just the same problems repeating themselves that we had last season. It did cost us last season, you know what I mean? Because obviously at one point we were ahead of Celtic, and those issues ultimately cost us. So to see the sort of same things happening again, poor goals being conceded when we're in possession, we're giving away possession needlessly, conceding a goal, missing decent chances, lacking that bit of creativity. I wouldn't want to think that there's not going to be any more business to get players in, because it's obvious we need them. But that team's not going to do any damage at the moment. We need several players in, I would suggest. Now, the only concern I have is the sort of comments for Clement last week about, he essentially implied that the board would lie to him, that we were going to have to sell before we bought, all that kind of stuff. Now, that's fair enough. We are a club with a certain budget. Kind of understand that, but the fact that Clement seemed to suggest that wasn't what he was told when he came in October was a bit of a worry for me. So it'll be interesting to see who comes and goes. You know what I mean? There seems to be a suggestion that they want to do a deal with Seema. I think that'll be costly. That'll cost us a few quid, I would imagine. Who else they're looking at bringing in? I think we need a striker. We desperately need a striker. Dessers again yesterday. I've stood up for him from the past, and I do think he contributes. I don't think he's as bad as people make out, but the same mistakes again, not controlling simple passes, moves breaking down on him. It was him that gave away possession cheaply for the first goal. That area needs addressed. I'm not convinced Danilo's the answer. The boy you mentioned earlier on, I don't even want to attempt to pronounce his name.
Hamza.
Agamne, yeah, Hamza. Aye. There's a suggestion that he's one for the future. I don't know if I'm a wee bit frustrated when you're hearing comments like we need to sell before we buy. Then why are we spending 2.5 million on someone for the future? You know what I mean? It's obvious that team needs people for the here and now. But we're speaking from a position of before the window's closed. We don't know what's to come. We don't know, what the board have got lined up. But yeah, I think like most Rangers fans at the moment, I'm quite worried because I'm looking at that team, and not just the team, the club in general, the situation with Ibrox and various other wee bits and bobs that are going on.
I know an entire agenda here, mate, that you're trying to answer in this one question. I just want to know if you thought the squad was stronger now or not.
Yeah, but it's the wider context, everything. See, everything that's going on at the moment wouldn't feel as bad if we were successful, if we had trophies in the bag. You know what I mean? And
if we'd won the league at the end of last season, none of this would matter.
I don't think many people would be caring about the situation at the moment. So, but we didn't win the league, and it's just a bad look, and it feels bad. So yeah, anxious about the squad, anxious about the club. We'll see what comes in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Ben, talking about the squad, very, very strong rumours the last few days about our captain, about Tavernier. And that he's leaving the club. Now, there's been talk all over the summer, but it really did feel that it was more than talk just over the last couple of days with a Turkish club whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce either. It's one of these shows of me showing my ignorance of foreign languages. Probably English as well. So, it's funny, I remember, obviously when we signed Tav, I'd never heard of him before he joined us. He wasn't a player who I was aware of. And I remember that first game, the Challenge Cup game at Easter Road, and he scored an absolute beauty. And really, from then, he has cemented himself as our first choice right back. Obviously, became club captain, won the league, took us to a European final. How are you feeling about what looks like the end of his Rangers career? How are you feeling about that? You mixed emotions. You pleased he's leaving? What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, I'm in two minds to a certain extent. I think I would say I'm probably in the minority in that I probably would have liked him to have stayed this season. However, the state that the squad is in right now, we need to sell some assets, and he's one of the few that you can probably get a few quid for. And I do realise he's been there a long time, and there has been failure, and there's a lot of scars there with him and around the club, and we do need a sort of freshness, and we need to go in a different direction and maybe new leadership. And it's easier. I think it's easier to move someone on than keep them and strip them of the captaincy. But yeah, I think he'll be remembered fondly if he was to move on. He has given an awful lot to the club. I understand the talk, and there's plenty of it, that a Rangers captain or a Rangers player in general should be measured on trophies. And I agree to an extent, and in most situations I would agree. If we were talking 20 years ago, I would say totally. But he has been there during a strange time in the history of Rangers, hasn't he? So I don't think it's fair to say with the teams he's been involved in, it wasn't realistic for him to be winning the amount of trophies that a Barry Ferguson or as a captain was. So I think he can kind of still be a success and not have won as many trophies. At the end of the day, it's a shame, and it's an indictment on us that we have been so reliant on our right back to score our goals. But even last season, he scored the majority of the goals. He was still assisting goals. So saying what you want. Yes, it might be the right time, but he still will be hard to replace, and he still will be missed in the team. I will never see a right back like that again. Others need to step up, and others have needed to step up and haven't, but he has continually produced. Yes, there's questions defensively, and he had a poor end of the season last season. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Whether he was fit or not, I'm not sure, but James Tavernier has given massive amount to Rangers, and we should all remember him nothing but fondly.
Yeah, I agree entirely with you. And actually, I think you nailed it there. I don't think it's the majority view, but I like you. Actually, I'm sorry he's leaving. I think it's. I suspect that you nailed it there when you said, look, he's somebody the club can't sell. We need to sell to bring in money, and sometimes you have to sell your better players to do that. I think quite a few people felt that he had run out of kind of steam towards the end of last season. I heard him being blamed for the collapse of our league challenge. That he doesn't have a winning mentality, etc. I don't know if that's true. I really don't know if that's true. I think that's unfair. And I think history will judge him very well. I think he's one of these players we'll look back on in 10 years' time or so and remember, wow, that's right, that's what he delivered. But
John, sorry if I can come in. I wonder if the player himself has maybe just had enough of it as well. You know what I mean? The amount of stick that he gets, and I mean, there's no doubt about it. Last season was his worst season in terms of performance levels. But
I think the second half of it was. I thought actually.
I thought the full season I thought
he had a spell when Clement came in where he was back at his best. But
yeah,
the last 6 weeks of the season,
in a different way under Clement too. He wasn't being able to get us forward as much. And then, the thing with Tav has always been that his defending has been questioned. And if he's not getting forward as much, he's not going to produce as much. And then his defending is going to be highlighted more.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. I would agree. I would agree that last season probably was his poorest, but the numbers are still there as well. Yeah, that's the thing.
And I mean, in terms of
never had.
In terms of the mentality thing, the game against Celtic, the game at Ibrox, was it 3-each, the 3-each game? And it was to blame for the first goal in the first sort of 10 seconds. He was really slack. He lost possession outside the box. It led to the penalty. Maeda was in his head. He was having an absolute bomb scare performance. And then we get a penalty. Then he steps up and it would have been really easy for Tavernier to say, I'm having a shitter of a day. I'm going to pass this over. But, I think that you can never deny that Tavernier was prepared to accept the responsibility. And I'm a bit conflicted that he's going because I think he's a year off a testimonial, and it feels. Someone like him that led us to a European final probably deserves a testimonial. But I do just wonder if the player himself thinks, what, I've got, because like after the games and stuff, like if I'm in the Loudon or in the Rolls Royce Club speaking to fans, I mean proper hatred for Tav and his leadership and like proper bio. You're like, this is a Rangers captain you're talking about. He's never a captain. He's never this. And you're like. Don't know so much. I mean, I do think it's time for fresh leadership, but I think there's ways and means of doing it, if you know what I mean. And I said a while ago that we'll never know what we had with Tav until he's away.
I agree with you.
So we're about to find out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Colin, you kind of answered it earlier on. I was going to ask you though that if Tav does leave, and there's rumours tonight of other players leaving, which I'll touch upon. But if Tavernier does leave, and assuming we get, I don't think there's any danger in us assuming this, that we'll get a transfer fee for him, and we reinvest that. Where would you like to see us invest that?
I mean, you're
going to buy another right back.
I think Sterling. It looks to me like Clement is happy for Sterling to take that role. And I was speaking to someone when I was in the district bar last week, and someone who seemed to be in the know was suggesting that the boy Divine isn't being considered for right back. They're bringing in the other boy and all this kind of stuff. So I think Sterling.
He didn't have a great time on loan at Motherwell.
No, so I think I think it's Sterling's position. I think it's his to lose. I think that's who Clement seems to be favouring at the moment. If Tav does go, which seems is the case. I mean, in terms of where we need to spend money, I mean, we've lost Seema, so we need a winger. I still think we need a striker. If Goldson goes, we'll need another centre half. I still think a lot of our issues last season come from the middle of the park, come from midfield, and we're just probably the easiest way of putting it is we need a spine. You know what I mean? I don't think we have a solid spine in that team, and that's probably what we need. So I would say someone at the back, a centre half, another strong midfielder, and a striker and a winger. You know what I mean? That's the sort of areas I'm looking at that we need to address. I mean, that right wing's been an issue since Christ knows when. You know what I mean? It seems like every time we talk on the first day of the pod that we're always talking about, we need to finally get someone in that right wing and get that fixed. We need bodies in, and that's what I would be spending the money at. Again, when you look at, how much would Shankland cost us? You know what I mean? The 2.5 we've spent in Hamza would probably get you Shankland.
You would have think so. With a year left in his contract, you would have thought 3 million would get you Shankland.
And that's why it confuses me that we've brought this boy in and there's talk of, well, he's one for the future, and there was even rumours the other day that he's injured and he's out until Christmas and all this kind of nonsense. And again, if the club was winning trophies, this sort of stuff would bounce off you. But because we're not winning trophies, it makes us look a bit chaotic, and that we're not being, we're not operating in the best way. So, as I said, we're speaking from a position where the window's not closed yet, but I think we could have got some of the bigger players in sooner. I think that's probably what I'm saying. Get them in, get them settled, and get them ready to go, because Celtic have got guaranteed Champions League. I've seen today that it looks like they're going to get about 18, 19 million for O'Reilly. I mean, they're getting money coming in from all sources, and we're getting left behind year after year. We need to find a way to address that.
Ben, I don't know if you watched yesterday's game. It was our third kind of main pre-season. There was a kind of behind closed doors game against Hamilton as well, but this was the third of our kind of main pre-season games. 2 defeats and a goalless draw. 1 goal scored, 4 against. Does that matter? I mean, pre-season friendlies are supposed to be about giving you a chance to take along your kids to a game that you can't normally get tickets for, a chance to wear the new strip, and probably more importantly, allow the team to try and gel and reach a bit of fitness, etc. So do these results matter? Should we read anything into them, good or bad?
No, I don't think the results matter. I think you can take plenty from them, but essentially they are fitness exercises. They're just about getting team cohesion, about playing together, and the likes of, say, Cortez getting some more minutes as he comes back from an injury. So no, I'm not at all worried about the results. What worries me is the lack of, I think Colin touched on it earlier, it was the same mistakes that we've seen before. We've read this book before. It's the lack of invention. It's the lack of new things. And again, yes, it is the 21st of July, and there's plenty of time for people to come in. But we're 2 weeks behind the season starting, so I would have liked things to have come in. Now, I said, last year in pre-season, I had basically given Sam Lambert's player of the season. I was all in thinking he was going to be a great player. So I've decided this year I'm not going to pay much attention to it. I'm not going to care. But there are certainly a lot of concerning things. Although I look at even the game yesterday, there was what concerned me was it was the same issues with Dessers. Defensively, it was the same issues. In terms of conceding the same goals, and the same players making mistakes. However, as I said, Cortez getting some minutes is a positive. I think Barron has been a real positive in pre-season so far. And I watched the Ajax game and I watched yesterday's game. And Barron is a good sign and is a player I wanted us to sign. But I sort of felt that maybe we're signing him and he mightn't he might be a sub here and there, but I'm getting more of an impression that he is ready to fight for his place.
I think we're Raskin potentially injured. I think he's a stick-on for his place, to be quite honest with you, now.
Yeah. And maybe that says more about the competition that we lack. However, he can only take his chance when he's given it, and I think he has. He's not hiding. He's showing for the ball. He looks hard working. So to me, he looks like a good replacement for Ryan Jack, and hopefully we'll be able to stay fit a lot more than Ryan Jack. But there's pleasing things to take from the preseason. We could have won all our games, convincingly, and then go into the season still not playing well. You would rather win than not, but no, I'm not losing any sleep in terms of us losing or anything like that. It's getting cobwebs out, and then it's building. I'd happily lose every game of pre-season and then beat Hearts in the start of the season.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to look at it. And there's 2 more games to come out. Birmingham we're playing, and then Union Berlin. It's like an eclectic mix of teams we're playing this pre-season. Both of them away, obviously. Murrayfield was as close to home as we're going to play for this pre-season. Again, I'm kind of with you. I mean, I thought we created chances yesterday, which was a good thing. I don't really know what stage Man United are at. Obviously, they had a few players missing, a few household names missing. But I thought the first half team was, pretty much. I recognised all of them. I didn't know any of the second half team, but I recognised all of the first half team. And for them as well, it's a chance to get fit, etc. Disappointing goals to lose, but as you guys have already pointed out, it felt like a continuation of last season. It didn't feel like we were seeing anything new, and I think partly because we weren't seeing anything new. I mean, and Barn and Jeff Day was pretty much it. Other than that, it was last season's team, and I guess that's probably the thing that concerns me most just now. We've lost a few influential players, and we haven't replaced them. So anyway, we'll wait and see. Colin, a player who was missing yesterday was Todd Cantwell. And there seems to be some confusion over Cantwell just now. There are and have been rumours that Cantwell is, either the club are trying to sell him or his agent is trying to move him, or it's a little unclear exactly what's going on. The club have hinted that he's injured and was going to play with the B team. I don't know if he is injured, if he's out of favour. You certainly got the feeling last season that him and Clement didn't always see eye to eye. That was certainly the thing. At the same time, he played. He played quite a few games. What's your take on this? And I guess probably more importantly is what do you hope will happen?
I mean, in terms of what I hope will happen is I hope he'll go and we'll get someone else in. I think Cantwell come in. He came in December. He came in during the January window.
Came in the January window, yeah.
Yeah, and from that point till the end of the season, showed a lot. You know what I mean? But he showed a lot when the season was effectively over. He got that goal against Celtic in the 3-0 game at the end of the season. And I think we were all thinking at that point that Raskin and Cantwell were going to be the foundation, and that's how we were going to build the team around those two. I mean, with both of them, that hasn't worked. I mean, Raskin disappeared completely last season.
Disappointing season last season.
Yeah, I thought with Clement arriving, I thought that might have given him a bit of incentive, but he's just. Although it looks like he could be a key player this season, time will tell. But with regards to Cantwell, I mean, when it was having a wee bit of strife with Clement about because he was playing him out wide and he was sort of coveting that number 10 position, and then he got it, and he just hasn't done enough for me, to warrant, Clement putting any faith in him. And I do wonder, there was an incident at the end of the cup final when he sort of dragged him away, getting involved in nonsense as usual. I do wonder if, Clement maybe didn't have many other options in terms of playing anyone else in that position. But I also wonder if he was also just giving Cantwell enough rope, just to prove that you're not the type of player that I need. And Cantwell's done everything to back that up last season. I thought he was Really, really poor. And the social media stuff just irritates me. You know what I mean? The pointless stuff, the cryptic stuff that he posts, it's just like, you know, it's the old adage, do your talking on the field. You know what I mean? You look at Callum McGregor in the Euros. I think I watched the first game, the Germany game, Scotland's game, and he was nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Right, just made to look like a very, very average player. And Cantwell can't get near him in Old Firm games. You know what I mean? McGregor just knows how to get the better of him, and I just think we need more. We need a better option. And so yeah, I think the club are trying to move him on. Yeah, I think his agent got caught sending dummy info or proper info to a dummy account. Is that someone was telling
something very odd? Yeah, I don't know.
He thought it was an actual agent, and it turned out it wasn't, and he sent all these details about Cantwell to this sort of fan account or whatever it was, and that's typical of Cantwell. You know, it's that kind of nonsense. Even his agent gets involved in nonsense like that. So, you know, we brought him up, we tried, it looked like it would work at one point. I think there's enough evidence to suggest now that he's not the sort of player that we need. He's a luxury I don't think we can afford. So I think it would be best for both parties if it was to move on elsewhere and we get that money in and reinvest it.
Yeah, I also think. Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, there's a circus around him that you would put up with if you got results and quality. You just don't.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't get it from him at all.
No, I agree. I also think he's sellable. You know, I think he is a player who could do a job in the English Championship. I think he's already proved he can. And there is a bit of money in that league, and I think we basically got him for nothing. So I don't imagine whatever we get is a profit, and I don't think it would be ridiculous to think he would probably command £4 or £5 million at least. Which with things stand just now, if you sold him and Tav, that might change our ability to sign players quite considerably. So I think also it's coming to the end of the road for Todd as well, and it's frustrating because, like you, I saw him in that Celtic game that time, and I thought, right, here we go, this is us. This time last year I was quite excited about the season, and look where that got me. So maybe my current depression means it will go the opposite this season. Who knows?
I mean, also for the player himself, though. I mean, that this is a couple of clubs he's been at now where he's sort of started well and it's fell away. You know what I mean? So it's going to come at the point that if he doesn't kick on soon, he will find these options limiting. You know, he'll not get the same level of club that he's maybe looking to sign for. You know, as a player, I mean, I don't want him to be at Rangers and I don't want him to be at the club anymore. But if he's got genuine ambitions of having a decent career, he needs to get his finger out his behind. Yeah,
his next move has to work from his own perspective. His next move has to work. It was interesting yesterday that obviously Lawrence started, Dowell come on, and Lowry come on. I think you would look at those three as being the three that are probably competing with him for that place. And I think it's Lawrence's just now, unless we sign somebody else. And I thought it was interesting that Lowry was involved again. He didn't do much when he came on, to be honest, but I thought it was interesting. There was a wee clip on Rangers TV of training, I think when they were over in Holland, and they're doing a drill, and it's short, smaller pitches and smaller sides, and it shows you a kind of a build up to a goal. But it was quite interesting because Lowry laid off a beautiful pass. Just a lovely first time, lovely pass to this boy. I think it was Jeffy actually, or Ridvan, who then put in a cross. Somebody came in at the back post, stuck it away. So a goal for their team. And Clement gave Lowry a hard time. It was interesting. He wasn't bawling and shouting at him, but he was saying, it's a lovely pass, great pass, but you stood still. He didn't move. You didn't go into the box. You need to be going in that box. You need to be getting that. And it was really interesting. You're thinking, and I think that's Cantwell's problem as well. I think he wants to lay that ball off and then look at me, look what I did. And I think there's a bit of that with Lowry and
play the ball and admire it. Yeah, that's a really good ball. Go in there and follow it up.
Clement wants workers, and I think that's his issue. Ben, Ben, I don't like to use this term, the state of the club, because in our recent past, our club has been in a really bad state. So I hesitate to say that, but I'm using that term just now because there have been issues over the summer, and there's no point in pretending otherwise. And I think it would be remiss of us not to have a chat about them. Aside from the transfer activity, I think the first thing I want to just kind of chat to you about is about the stadium itself, about Ibrox, and the fact that we are unlikely to play at home. Officially, the last I saw was until October. Like everybody else, some people tell me, oh, it's going to be Christmas. Other people tell me, oh, we'll be lucky if it's, who knows. But either way, I think we're certainly looking at playing at Hampden until October at least. And aside from the embarrassment of it, it's damaging in terms of losing home advantage. Now, Hampden is a second home, I think that's fair to say, but it's not Ibrox. It's not as good a stadium as Ibrox. It doesn't have as good an atmosphere as Ibrox. And we do have some difficult games and important games for the club coming up. So there is the footballing side of losing Ibrox. And also the income perspective. Yes, okay, we'll have season ticket money still. But no, the SFA are not giving us Hampden for nothing. And whatever corporate entertainment and everything else that goes along with the Rangers home game, that there has to be a blow to income. So just how damaging and embarrassing is this? And do you have a feel for where the blame lies for this?
Yeah, I mean, it's shambolic. It's amateur. It makes us look very amateur. It's poorly organised, and it's not only what's happened. It's also been the whole communication around it. Afterwards has been slow, and has been, everything's been kind of an afterthought. So it's very, very, very difficult to say anything other than that. And I think it's the financial aspect is a big thing as well. I mean, if you look at last pre-season, we were having Newcastle up for Alan McGregor's testimonial, and you've got a full stadium for that. You've people buying things in the shop, all the rest. You're missing that for quite a long time. I think in terms of there's no doubt that the league games should take care of themselves for the majority, because Rangers, no matter where we're playing, should be good enough to beat most of the teams in the league. However, it is difficult. It does make it more challenging, and it sort of almost gives a little excuse in the head of some players, and we need to not let that be the case. But hopefully it's backs against the wall and we get the job done on the pitch. But it is. I think it's those big games like the Champions League qualifiers that we're really going to feel like. How often do we say about Ibrox in Europe, or we've been going back to the Europa League run, we lose away, but we come back, we've got Ibrox. Well, we don't have that now, and yes, we'll still have home fans at Hampden, but the atmosphere at Hampden, what the fans are getting is not as good. Behind the goal is an awful view. So yeah, it's poor. It's been poorly handled, but we are where we are, and the players and the management just need to now get on with the job. Because we can't let it be the reason. If we lose a couple of games, you're back at Ibrox, but your season's over. Basically by that stage possibly. So we need to knuckle down and get on with it. I think hopefully there will be lessons learned from this. But there's lessons could have been learned from many things, and perhaps haven't. Things like this happen to a certain extent, but to me, okay, things can go, take longer to come or whatever, resources wise. But let's make sure we've got everything before we start. That seems like a basic thing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't claim any insight into the construction industry because I don't have one. But like you, I do find it slightly surprising that something that is done, that has to be done on a quite a clear, narrow timetable, that important parts of that aren't available. That somebody might have noticed that and realised that beforehand. And it's not great. It's not the end of the world. I think we do have to be careful. It's not the end of the world, but it's not great. It's not great for fans. People who are asked to spend a lot of money in a season ticket, not knowing where they're going to be sitting. And like you say yourself, I like the Rangers end at Hampden, but it's not the Coleman Road. The sightlines are not the same. The atmosphere is not the same. Like it or not, you are not sitting in as good a seat as the one you paid for.
And Hampden's a bugger to get to, John. It's an absolute nightmare of ground to get to Hampden.
It's certainly not as easy to get to as Ibrox.
No.
I guess it's not too bad if you live in Shawlands, but if you don't, if you live in Northern Ireland or further afield, then I guess it's not. Yeah, it's a pain of a place to get to. So I don't disagree with you there. But I mean, I don't see it's better than Murrayfield, which seemed to be the other option. So from that perspective, nothing any of us can do about this just now. You have to assume, you have to hope that people are moving heaven and earth to get this done as quickly as it can be. I think it was you, Colin, that pointed out the last time we spoke, or one time we spoke, what no one's mentioned about this is there's a big dirty crane sitting in the middle of the pitch just now.
Yeah.
That has to be having an effect on the pitch. So there'll need to be some remedial work done on that. And if our autumn is anything like our summer, good luck getting the grass to grow. Far less knit in with the rest of it. But again, these are things we'll just have to deal with. And I think you made a very good point there, Ben, that the players and the management, that they can't affect this and they have to not let it affect them. Whether it will or not is another matter. Colin, James Bisgrove resigned, and that's left us without a CEO. And on top of that, we don't currently have a director of football. We're also without a director of our academy. Now, this has been a recurring theme in tonight's show. If we were winning, we probably wouldn't care. This probably wouldn't be something we'd spend an awful lot of time on. And I think many supporters, maybe most is unfair, I think many supporters really only care about what's going on in the pitch. Off the pitch, I think we were all looking forward to a period of some stability. I think when the current board took over, I think we all felt that there was a period of stability coming up. I think we were all quite happy with who was there, and yet it seems to be anything but. We've lost three. Well, we've got three important roles at the club needing filled. Does this concern you, Colin? And I know, look, let's just be quite frank here. You know what? I actually don't know. Ben may well be a captain of industry, but I know that Colin and I aren't captains of industry, and so we're not really in a position to give you a great insight into what it takes to run an £80 million turnover sports business. But does this concern you, or do you just think this is what happens in any large business? This is, people come, people go. You go through periods where people need to leave, and it takes time to replace a CEO. I guess there's not just somebody. You can't just stick an ad in the Evening Times and interview a few guys on Monday. I guess it's not done that way these days. What's your take on this just now, Colin?
I mean, without a doubt, it concerns me. I mean, in terms of Bisgrove, I mean, my views on Bisgrove. I never took to the guy at all in terms of. I think in his previous role, when he was sort of briefed with increasing the turnover, I think all he done for that was just hammer us. You know what I mean? He just basically hammered the support for every penny that they've got. He always looked to me as a guy that would. I mean, I'm not a captain of industry, John, but I've worked in many offices, and you identify characters that come and go, and you get a sense for people when they come in. You think this person has a feel for this job, they want to do it for a while, they want to make a success of it. And there's others that come in, you think they're already looking at the next stage of their career. And I always got that sense with Bisgrove that we were just a stepping stone. And I don't view Rangers as a stepping stone. I view Rangers as the target, that if you're wanting to get a top job, when you get to Rangers, you consider yourself that you've made it. And so to be chief executive of Rangers, to me, why would you want any other job?
Yeah, that should be the fulfilment of a career, not.
It should certainly be one that you're thinking, well, I'm here for the next 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. You know what I mean? But I always got the sense that Bisgrove was looking to move on to so-called greater things. I think he's left the club in a lurch. And it just adds to this sense of, you know, just that the club's not functioning the way it should function. I mean, the whole thing about Ibrox, I know we've spoke about it, but, you know, as you said there, John, we're going into a close season. It's a finite period of time. You have to get this job done. Why is there no contingency plan? Why did this seem to land on the desk of the club and they're all of a sudden running about looking at options? You know, with something like that, you should already have a contingency. That's basic governance. I mean, I don't run a major football club, but that is basic governance. If you've only got a short period of time to get this job done, you need to be saying, well, what if we don't get it done? You know, we need to look at the options that are out there. And I think that's maybe one of the more concerning things that this. I mean, it's all right for the board to say, well, we sacked the person responsible because apparently someone did lose their job over this. Well, you must have signed off on that. You know, that person must have came to you and said, this is the plan. Everything will go perfectly. When the season comes, we'll be at Ibrox and that stand will be fixed. And you know, they must have been convinced that plan was going to work. But to me, that even if you are convinced it's going to work, you still have to have some sort of contingency in place just in case, you know. Yeah. And it's just the fact that the club appears to have been, you know, in terms of Bisgrove leaving, it seems that we've been caught on the back foot. In terms of Ibrox, it seems like we've been caught on the back foot and we're reacting. We're not being proactive in these situations. We're having to react to them. And again, it just makes the club look a bit clunky and that we're not, as I said, operating the way you should operate. So I think all these things do give us enough things to be concerned about. And I think Clement's comments last week add to that. It just makes you think that, you know, there's obviously, as you've pointed out, there's key positions that don't have anyone in them at the moment. We need to address that as soon as we can, because maybe people at the board are spreading themselves too thin at the moment, you know, because there's just so many bases to cover. I don't know, but I just know how I feel looking at it, and it looks like a bit of a bin fire at the moment. And we just need to get out of that. We need to get back to looking like a club that functions properly, because it feels like when we go back into the top flight, you know, after the journey, we were a bit of a ramshackle, a bit of a bin fire, and you know, slowly but surely we got it all fixed. We go back into European competition. We won the league. We reached a European final, and I would actually say Seville could be a bit of a turning point, because since then it feels like we've actually been regressing, but we're actually going back to where we were sort of 2015-16 sort of period. That's how it looks, and I just think the club need to address it as soon as possible, just to reassure supporters, because every Rangers fan I speak to now is worried, angry, you know, the whole list of negative emotions. No one's positive about the new season. No one's positive about how the club's been run at the moment. So the club need to address that, because I mean, there's also the issue with supporters clubs. I don't quite know what the issue is, but I've seen a lot of, I mean, the Rangers Supporters Association on Twitter have been tweeting occasionally, complaining about how supporters buses and supporters clubs have been handled. They've been asked to do extra stuff that they never had to do before. You know, it's just. And then I heard a rumour the other day, again, construction industry and all that. A couple of my mates work in the construction industry. Now, they'd heard before it was official that there were issues at Ibrox and the steel had been delayed and it could impact on the start of the season. They're now hearing that some dodgy concrete has been found in the Copeland Road and that there's been a further delay and all that will need to be fixed. Again, this could be nonsense. And if we were a functioning club, you would treat that as nonsense. But because everything's a bit ramshackly at the moment, when you hear stuff like this, you start to worry and you start to panic and you think, when are we getting back to Ibrox? If that is true, you know, we're going to be back to Ibrox this year. So it's, yeah, the club is in a bad position at the moment. There's no doubt about that. And they need to address it as soon as they can.
I think the Copeland Road will be what? When was the Copeland Road open? 1980?
Oh, be 40 odd years, nearly as old as us, John.
Yeah, no, I think it's not quite as old as us, and I know the concrete inside of me is fairly decrepit. But you know, it's a thing that I don't know. I think Ben's a fair bit younger than us, but you know, I still think of Ibrox as a new stadium.
Yeah,
because I saw the new Ibrox, but it's not a new stadium. No, you know, you have to be frank about that. It's not. I mean, I remember.
And I also think, to be fair to the board, I think they're picking up some legacy stuff because it's fairly obvious that Murray didn't do anything in terms of maintenance to Ibrox or the training facility for the last few years that he was in charge. You know what I mean? So there is some legacy stuff there. And they maybe are in a bit of a perfect storm at the moment, but they need to get control of it and start to be in a position where they look like they're in control of it, and that can reassure supporters and put the message out there that the club's functioning again. Yeah. But at the moment, it just looks like a bit of a bin fire to me.
Yeah. And I don't know if the CEO resigning and being put onto gardening leave is part of the issue here, as part of why this project has run into the problems it's got. I don't think the CEO necessarily would be the person running the project, but I mean, would certainly be involved in signing things off. You would have to imagine that would be fairly intimately involved in understanding what's going on there. So I don't know if these things are connected or not. And I'm absolute supposition on my part to tie these things together. But you mentioned the point there, and maybe people are being pulled a little thinly, and I suspect that is the case just now. There does seem to be a lack of kind of senior executives just now who are working full time at the club at a senior level. That isn't good. That does need to be dealt with. At the same time, better to get the right person and wait a couple of months than rush to appoint somebody and find yourself going through the same issues again in 6 months' time and that person hasn't worked out. So they can't have my sympathies there. And the other thing I would say in mitigation here is that, unlike previous years, ironically, what the club are trying to do just now is actually something very positive. The building work at the Coltman Road isn't some remedial repairs. They're trying to finally address the really poor facilities that wheelchair supporters have had to face for a long time, and it's taken a long time to get to this point. So whatever criticism we may make of this board, and I do think they deserve some criticism for where we are just now, I think we have to weigh that up with the fact that, they are the first board in 14, 15 years, probably more, to address the stadium and try and improve it. And the fact that it's not worked out, the fact that it's a bit embarrassing is unfortunate. But I don't think it's fair of us not to at least acknowledge that, they weren't trying to fix a hole in the roof or they weren't trying to put out a bin fire, as we said earlier. They were trying to improve the facilities of the stadium for the supporters of the club, and hopefully this will be a temporary thing and will be passed. But I do tend to agree with you. I think that I'm a little concerned. Pardon me. I think I'm a little concerned that that the club is in need of some senior leadership to deal with some of the issues going on. Communication, as you both said. Communication being a very clear one on this. Okay, look, a couple of things I want to just try and squeeze in before the end of the hour. I believe tomorrow is the draw for the Champions League. I hope I've got that right. I'm not as up to date on this as I should be, but I believe it is tomorrow. And I think the clubs that we could be drawn against are Fenerbahce or Lugano. I hope I've got that right, from Switzerland. Union St. Galos, the one we played them a couple of seasons ago or so. Dynamo Kiev or Partizan Belgrade, FC 20 from Holland, and possibly RB Salzburg or Lille, depending on how the draw goes. And I apologise that I'm not as on top of this as I should be. But I'll be quite frank, I totally forgot what was happening. It had gone completely out of my mind. So, the old adage, there's no easy games. And, whilst a couple of those are certainly stronger than a couple of others, out of that lot, who would you fancy? If you had to pick one of them, who would it be, Ben?
There's certainly winnable ties there. I probably would take that Union Saint-Gilloise if that's it.
Look at that pronunciation. You pulled it out the bag there. I very much like that.
I would take them probably over some. I would like to think we would be able to compete with 20 as well. But right now, our squad certainly needs some additions if we're going to be qualifying for the Champions League. So no matter who we are, I mean, if we go in with the squad that we have currently, I'm afraid we will struggle at this minute in time to qualify for the Champions League. So, I would like to think that by the time, the Champions League qualifiers come around, we will have. I think there'll be a domino effect. I think once we maybe get one player out, we'll see a couple more out and a few in, hopefully. So we will hopefully be in a better position. But I think the most important thing for us right now is to be taking care of ourselves. If you want to be in the Champions League, you should be able to be competing with any of those teams. Lille, I think, would be the most difficult from that list. If I'm right,
you would think so.
Yeah,
I would think. Salzburg probably no mugs either, but yeah. Colin, you got a favourite out of them?
I just this time of the year gives me the fear, John. I just the whole Champions League qualification stuff, and and the way it's been over the last few years, I just don't have that much faith that even if we do get past this round, and we get into the knockout, then it gets tough then, as we found out last season against PSV. It's that's when some of the proper clubs come in. So I think most of the clubs on that list are winnable ties. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Apparently, we can't get Lille or Salzburg until the next round.
All right.
Frankie has whispered in my ear from Frankie's obviously in production just to the left of me there.
It's So I mean, it's not just about this round, is it? It's when we get through this.
I'm not going to go into it tonight, but we need the money. And the format of the Champions League obviously is different this year as well. But at the same time, I don't look forward to getting absolutely humped by some team who've just spent £500 million on their squad. And that that isn't an exaggeration. That is genuinely how some of these teams are lining up. Okay, look, let's bring it to a close. Our first league game's in 13 days. Champions League qualifiers 4 days after that. Sum it up for me very quickly, Ben. How are you feeling about the season ahead just now?
Apprehensive, really, at this minute in time. Probably as unprepared as we've been for a few years. So I am concerned. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. I do expect by the time we go to Hearts, things will be hopefully a little bit different, and we will have different players in. But I'm hoping it's not too late for a good start.
Okay, Colin. Leave us with something positive, Colin. Come on.
No. I'll tell you how I feel. Obviously we're not at the end of the transfer window yet, so there could be other players to come in. But yeah, really apprehensive. I mean, Tynecastle that's a tricky place to go. We have a fairly good record there, to be fair, but it's not a place that I want to go in the first day of the season. And obviously we've got the Old Firm game and the 31st of August. If things don't go well, the club will have a real situation come the 1st of September, because we could already be a few points behind Celtic. If the Champions League games don't go to plan, we could be out of the Champions League and into the Europa. It's a critical time coming up. If the club think they're getting stuck at the moment, then the 1st of September could be really tricky if certain games don't go certain ways. But hopefully we'll get players in. Hopefully Clement will still be there. And getting them motivated and going, but I would be lying if I said there was anything else other than apprehensive about next season. So I'll have to stick to my how I feel, John, and tell you. I would have been
disappointed, Colin, if you hadn't. I would have worried that you were being held hostage somewhere had you come out with something else. Look, guys, you know what? We could be going to Tynecastle. Lawrence Shanklin make his debut for us. He scores the goals that get us into the Champions League, then puts a hat-trick past Celtic at the end of the month. Who knows? Let's look on the positive and the potential here. Guys, I really do appreciate you giving up your Sunday night. I know it's been a bit dreich in the west of Scotland, certainly today. But I do appreciate you giving up your Sunday nights and joining us again as first one of the new season. So Ben and Colin, thanks for your time, and I hope we'll speak again throughout the season. Just if I could just remind everybody that the podcast is of course available on a variety of platforms, YouTube, which most of you probably know about. We're also on Acast, iTunes, Castbox, Stitcher, and Spotify. Could I quickly thank our sponsors again, Forrest Precision Engineering. Appreciate their their support. And if you do want to know about anything more about Forrest Precision Engineering, or indeed about that hospitality suite, then get in touch with Gersnet on Twitter or at the website. And lastly, just, thanks for joining us. Let's hope that this is the first of many. My earphone just fell out. That's probably not a good sign. Let's hope this is the first of many pods throughout the season, and let's hope we'll have some positive things to talk about. Thanks very much, and good night.